Hey, and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking into the history and symbolism behind yet another iconic flag, that of Brazil. Yeah, I know it's kind of a dead meme, but you know what? Okay, I'm done, I promise. Oh, and if you haven't done so, subscribe down below, set the bell for all notifications, and with that said, let's get to it. Okay, so today the Brazilian flag looks like this. It was adopted on November 19, 1889, and later modified to a 27-star version, the current design, on May 11, 1992. The flag's green field nowadays represents Brazil's vast, relatively untouched nature, most notably the Amazon rainforest, while the yellow rhombus speaks to the country's mineral wealth. Within it, a blue circle depicts the sky over Rio de Janeiro on November 15, 1889, the day the first Brazilian Republic was declared. Its 27 white, 5-pointed stars representing the states and federal district that comprise modern Brazil. Note that only one star, Spica, is above the white band inscribed with the national motto, symbolizing Brazilian territory in the northern hemisphere. Below this, and just a smidge to the left, you'll find the smallest star, Sigma Octantis, representing the federal district, which contains the nation's capital, Brasilia, and seat of government. The positioning of these stars/constellations make Brazil's flag one of the most complicated in terms of design, but the green and yellow, as it's commonly known, nonetheless is perhaps one of the most easily recognizable flags in the world. It, however, didn't always look as it does today, and some of these designs, I guarantee, aren't as well recognized, at least outside of Brazil. Okay, so before there was an independent Brazil, there was the Portuguese Empire, which came to dominate much of South America, and from roughly 1500 till 1815, its colonial holdings there used the Kingdom of Portugal's flag. The first uniquely Brazilian vexillological symbol was a green and white striped flag used by Portuguese merchant ships that frequently sailed to Brazil during the colonial period. It fell out of use sometime around 1692, and instead ships that frequented the area began using a white flag with a gold armillary sphere, which, having previously been featured on King Manuel I's royal standard, soon became a symbol of the empire and Portugal itself. In the wake of Napoleon's invasion of Portugal during the so-called Peninsular War, the future king but then still Prince Regent John VI, along with his by then largely incapacitated mother, Queen Maria I, fled Europe for the relative safety of Brazil. Following the French defeat in 1815, however, John opted to stay in Rio de Janeiro. When those arguing for the royal court's return to Lisbon pointed out that Brazil was merely a colony, John thanked them, and, in the name of his mother, elevated it to a kingdom, creating a pluricontinental monarchy known as the Kingdom of Portugal, Brazil, and the Algarve. And with that, the Kingdom of Brazil got a new coat of arms, a gold armillary sphere on a blue field, while also adopting the Kingdom of Portugal, Brazil, and the Algarve's flag. Things pretty much remained as such until John's eldest son and heir apparent, Pedro I, declared Brazilian independence in the aftermath of the Liberal Revolution of 1820. Without going into everything here, events back in Portugal forced John to return in 1821, leaving Pedro in Brazil. However, it soon became known that the Constituent Cortes, Portugal's first modern parliament, intended to re-exert control over Brazil, essentially reverting its status from a kingdom to a principality. The Cortes also ordered Pedro to return to Europe. Instead of complying, the prince set about establishing what soon came to be called the Empire of Brazil, with himself being proclaimed emperor on October 12, 1822. This process wasn't as easy as it sounds though, and the empire soon found itself embroiled in a war against Portugal, which it fought for a little over 3 years till 1825. There's much more to the story, of course, and Pedro would even briefly serve as King of Portugal in 1826 before his sister Maria II came to reign, but it was during this time that Pedro I's royal standard was modified and adopted as the empire's flag, marking the debut of Brazil's now iconic green and yellow. Well, sort of. The flag featured the imperial coat of arms in a yellow rhombus, the color representing the Habsburg origins of Pedro I's wife, Maria Leopoldina. The green field, in contrast, stood for the most serene house of Braganzana, from which Pedro himself hailed. the symbolism of these colors having of course changed in modern times. This remained as the Brazilian flag until 1853, when it was modified to include 20 stars during the 58-year reign of Pedro II, the second and last monarch of the Empire of Brazil. Then, in 1889, the empire was overthrown in a coup, resulting in the formation of the first Brazilian Republic, officially the Republic of the United States of Brazil. Upon its proclamation, a new flag with a design heavily inspired by that of the United States was put forward, but Manuel Deodoro da Fonseca, the provisional leader and soon-to-be first president of Brazil, vetoed the design. You know, I don't know, I kind of think it's a cool design. You don't really see green and yellow stripes on flags too often except for, Togo and... yeah, I'm getting kind of a lemon-lime vibe here. It's kind of neat. Fonseca, however, believed Brazil's flag should underscore continuity and national unity during the transition from a monarchy to a republic, and therefore should resemble the empire's flag in some fashion. Taking up the challenge, Raimundo Teixeira Mendes, a philosopher and mathematician, put forward a design that replaced the imperial coat of arms with a blue celestial globe. He also included a white band inscribed with the motto Ordem e Progresso, order and progress, the phrase being derived from the positivist motto, love as principle, order as the basis, progress as the goal. Just a quick side note here. Positivism is a philosophical theory that, generally speaking, claims theology and metaphysics are earlier, imperfect modes of knowledge, while positive or true knowledge is verifiable, based on the senses, and empirical in nature. We're not going to dive into the philosophy itself, but just know positivism was quite influential in Brazil during this period of time, and a number of those involved in the coup of 1889 were positivists themselves. Anyway, Fonseca accepted the design, and on November 19, 1889, it officially became the first flag of Republican Brazil. And aside from 3 modifications in 1960, 1968, and 1992, all of which added new stars to reflect newly created states, it has remained the flag of Brazil ever since. But there were other proposed designs aside from Mendes's that we know today. For instance, in the waning days of the empire, a design was put forward by writer and journalist Julio Ribeiro, featuring 13 stripes of alternating black and white, a red canton, 4 yellow stars, and a white circle with a blue map of Brazil. In the first edition of O Hibache, a newspaper he founded and edited, Ribeiro argued in favor of his design, stating, "It symbolizes in a perfect way the genesis of the Brazilian people, the 3 races of which it is composed, white, black, and red, the 4 stars surrounding a globe in which we see the geographical profile of the country, represent the Southern Cross, the constellation indicative of our astral latitude. So stand firm, glorious guest, the black target pendant of the cross." The black and white flag was later hoisted above the governor's palace on November 15, 1889, to celebrate the birth of the Republic, but just a few days later, Mendes's design was officially adopted. Some decades later, however, in the 1930s, Ribeiro's flag became the de facto symbol of São Paulo, and in 1946 it became the official state flag. This wasn't the only flag designed to feature red, white, and black to represent the major racial groups in Brazil, with 2 similar designs being proposed in 1890. There were also some designs which sought to remove the positivist motto, such as this proposal by Oliveira Valadão in 1892, featuring the Republic's coat of arms, Wenceslau Escobar's 1908 redesign, and those of Eurico de Goes. And that concludes this episode looking into the history and symbolism behind the flag of Brazil. As always, guys, if you have any suggestions for other flags to be covered in future episodes, let us know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and we'll see you again next time. Peace.